I never imagined that sitting at my childhood dining table watching my little sister Sophia beam about her new job would be the last time I would ever let myself be invisible in my own family. The way my father looked at her with such pride while barely acknowledging my presence should have been my first warning. But I was hopeful for just one normal family dinner where I might finally matter too. Little did I know that within the next hour, everything I thought I knew about my place in this family would shatter completely. Before we dive into this story, let me know in the comments where you are watching from, and please hit that like button if you have ever felt like an outsider in your own family. Do not forget to subscribe because you will want to see how this seemingly ordinary evening became the worst nightmare of my life, and how it ultimately set me free. My name is Victoria, and at 28 years old, I thought I had figured out my place in the world. I work as a marketing specialist at a mid-sized agency in Denver. Nothing glamorous, but something I am genuinely passionate about. My sister Sophia, 4 years younger at 24, had just landed her dream job at one of the most prestigious law firms in the state. The salary was more than I had ever made, and the opportunities for advancement seemed endless. Our father Robert has always been a practical man, the kind who measures success in dollars and prestige. He owned a small construction business until a back injury forced him into early retirement 3 years ago. Since then, he had become increasingly focused on what he called making smart life choices and ensuring his daughters did not make the mistakes he felt he had made. Our mother Patricia worked part-time at a local bookstore, always the peacekeeper, always trying to smooth over the rough edges that seemed to emerge whenever our family gathered. As I pulled into the driveway of my childhood home that October evening, I could smell the aroma of pot roast drifting from the kitchen windows. Mom had made Sophia's favorite meal, complete with those little roasted potatoes she had loved since she was 5 years old. I brought a bottle of wine to celebrate Sophia's new position, genuinely excited for her success, even though I could not shake the familiar knot that always formed in my stomach before family dinners. The conversation started innocently enough. Sophia was practically glowing as she described her corner office, the partners who had already complimented her work, and the cases she would be assisting with. Her enthusiasm was infectious, and I found myself caught up in her excitement, asking questions about her colleagues and the firm's culture. Dad leaned forward in his chair, hanging on every word, asking detailed questions about her starting salary, her benefits package, and her long-term prospects with the company. When there was finally a lull in Sophia's stories, I attempted to share some good news of my own. Our agency had just landed a major account that I had been instrumental in securing a campaign that would likely lead to my promotion to senior marketing specialist within the next 6 months. I had been working on the proposal for weeks, staying late every night to perfect the presentation that ultimately won us the contract. Dad nodded politely, but quickly shifted the conversation back to Sophia. "You know, Sophia reminds me so much of myself at her age," he said, cutting his roast with deliberate precision. "She has that natural business instinct, that drive to succeed in a competitive field. Law is where the real money is, where you can build something substantial." I felt that familiar tightness in my chest, but tried to keep my voice light. "Marketing can be pretty competitive too, Dad, and creative industries are growing rapidly. I really love what I do." "Sure, sweetheart," he replied, but his tone was dismissive. "But Victoria, you are 28 now. When are you going to start thinking about building real wealth? Marketing is fine as a hobby, but Sophia is already on track to make partner someday. That is the kind of thinking that builds generational wealth." Mom served dessert, her famous apple crisp, while Dad continued to pepper Sophia with questions about her retirement plan, her student loan repayment strategy, and whether the firm offered stock options. I sat there pushing apple crisp around my plate, watching my sister bask in the kind of attention and approval I had been craving my entire life. The conversation took a sharper turn when Dad started talking about practicalities. "Sophia, have you thought about buying a car? That old Honda of yours is not exactly projecting the right image for someone in your position." Sophia laughed, admitting that she had been looking at a few options, but was not sure she could afford the payments on top of her new apartment rent. Nonsense, Dad said immediately. We will figure something out. A good car is an investment in your career. Image matters in law. I watched this exchange with growing unease, remembering my own struggles to buy reliable transportation when I was starting out, and how I had saved for 2 years to afford a decent used car without any family assistance. The tone of the evening shifted dramatically when Dad began comparing Sophia's choices to what he perceived as my shortcomings. Victoria, why did you not pursue law like your sister? You were always smart enough. Marketing seems so uncertain, so dependent on trends and fads. Sophia chose a stable career with clear advancement opportunities. I tried to explain my passion for creative problem-solving, how marketing allowed me to combine analytical thinking with artistic expression. But Dad seemed unconvinced. Passion does not pay the bills, he said bluntly. Look at Sophia. She made a practical choice, and now she is already ahead of where you were at her age. The comparison stung more than I wanted to admit. I had worked incredibly hard to build my career starting as an intern, and slowly working my way up through various agencies until I found my current position. I had moved out of my parents' house at 22 and had been completely financially independent ever since. Yet somehow, Sophia's immediate success felt like proof that I had chosen the wrong path. Things got worse when Dad revealed how extensively he had been helping Sophia. I already talked to the bank about co-signing for her car loan, he announced casually. And Patricia and I are going to help with the security deposit for that downtown apartment she found, the one with the gym and the rooftop deck. I nearly choked on my wine. You are helping her with an apartment security deposit? Sophia looked uncomfortable, but did not deny it. How much are we talking about? $5,000 for the deposit first month's rent, Dad said, as if it were nothing. And probably another $15,000 for a reliable car. She needs to look the part if she wants to succeed in that environment. $20,000. I sat there calculating how long it had taken me to save that much money for my own emergencies, my own future. When I had needed help with my first apartment, I had been told that struggling was part of learning responsibility. When my transmission died 2 years ago, leaving me with a $3,000 repair bill, I had taken on freelance projects for months to cover the cost. Dad, I said carefully, I did not realize you were in a position to help with such large expenses. I was thinking about the conversations we had when he was out of work, when Mom had to pick up extra shifts, when I had quietly started sending money home each month to help with groceries and utilities. Well, Sophia is worth the investment, he replied. She is going to use these advantages properly. She has always been more responsible with money, more focused on her future. The words hit me like a physical blow. More responsible with money. I thought about the $800 I still sent home every month, money Dad thought came from Mom's mysterious savings account. I thought about the 3 years I had lived on ramen noodles and generic cereal so I could help keep their mortgage current during Dad's unemployment. I thought about how I had never asked for recognition, never expected gratitude, because I believed family helped family without keeping score. Sophia seemed to sense the tension building. Dad, Victoria, has always been responsible too. Remember when she helped us with... But Dad cut her off with a wave of his hand. Sophia, you do not need to defend your sister. Victoria needs to hear some hard truths. She is 28 years old, and what does she have to show for it? A rental apartment, a 10-year-old car, and a job that might disappear tomorrow if trends change. Meanwhile, you are building something real, something lasting. I excused myself to the bathroom, needing a moment to process what was happening. Looking in the mirror above the sink where I used to brush my teeth as a child, I barely recognized the woman staring back at me. When had I become so small in my own family? When had my accomplishments become so invisible? When I returned to the dining room, the conversation had moved to Sophia's dating life. Dad was giving her advice about networking events and bar associations, suggesting that she should be strategic about the social connections she made. "You have everything going for you," he told her. "You are beautiful, intelligent, ambitious. You could have your pick of successful men." "What about Victoria's dating life?" Mom interjected gently. "She has been seeing that nice photographer Daniel for almost a year now." Dad shrugged. "Artists do not make good husbands. Sophia needs someone who can match her ambition, someone from her professional circle." The dismissal of my relationship, of my choices, of my entire life, felt like death by 1,000 small cuts. The evening reached its breaking point when Dad decided to give me unsolicited life advice. "Victoria, I think it is time for some tough love. You are almost 30 and you are still living like you are fresh out of college. When are you going to grow up and make some real commitments?" "What do you mean?" I asked, though I could feel my defensive walls going up. "I mean, look at your life objectively. You have no equity, no investment portfolio, no clear advancement path. Sophia is 4 years younger and already has more security than you do. That should tell you something." The unfairness of the comparison was staggering. Sophia had graduated debt-free thanks to scholarships and family support, while I had worked 2 jobs throughout college to minimize my student loans. She had lived at home during law school, saving thousands in rent and utilities, while I had been independent since graduation. She was starting her career with a financial safety net that I had never had. "Dad, our situations have been completely different," I began, but he held up his hand to stop me. "Excuses, Victoria. That is all I ever hear from you. Sophia does not make excuses. She makes plans and follows through. She sets goals and achieves them. You could learn something from her." "You know what?" I said, feeling my composure finally cracking. "You are absolutely right. Sophia is amazing. She is accomplished and driven and everything you could want in a daughter." "Finally," Dad said, some self-awareness. "But Dad," I continued, "there are some things about Sophia's success that you might not know. Some things that might change your perspective on how accomplished she really is." Sophia looked at me with sudden alarm. "Victoria, what are you talking about?" I had sworn to myself that I would never reveal what I was about to reveal. I had promised myself that I would take this secret to my grave, because I loved my sister, and I wanted her to feel secure in our parents' love. But sitting there listening to my father tear apart everything I had worked for while praising a success story that I had quietly funded, I felt something inside me snap. "Tell me, Dad, what happened when Sophia was between jobs for those 8 months after law school? When she was applying for positions and waiting to hear back from firms." "She was smart," Dad replied. "She took her time to find the right opportunity instead of jumping at the first offer. That is strategic thinking." "And how did she pay rent during those 8 months of strategic thinking?" Dad looked confused. "We helped her, obviously. Patricia and I made sure she did not have to stress about money while she was job hunting." I turned to look at my mother, whose face had gone pale. She remembered. She remembered the monthly phone calls, the careful questions about Sophia's well-being, the cashier's checks that arrived with instructions to tell Sophia they were from her parents' savings account. "Actually, Dad, you and Mom never helped Sophia with rent during that period. You could not. You were still recovering financially from your injury. Remember, Mom was working double shifts just to keep up with the mortgage payments." "Victoria," Sophia whispered, "what are you saying?" "I am saying that I paid your rent for 8 months, Sophia. $1,500 every single month. $12,000 total from my savings account, because I could not stand the thought of you worrying about money while you were trying to start your career." The silence in the room was deafening. I could hear the refrigerator humming in the kitchen, could hear a dog barking somewhere down the street, could hear my own heart pounding in my ears. "You told Mom to tell you it was coming from their savings account because I knew you were too proud to accept help from your big sister. I knew you needed to feel independent. But it was me, Dad. It was always me. Sophia's face crumpled. Victoria? I had no idea. I thought Mom and Dad were struggling to help me, and I felt terrible about it, but they insisted. They insisted because I asked them to, I said quietly. Because I wanted you to focus on your future instead of worrying about survival. Dad sat frozen, his fork halfway to his mouth, processing what he had just heard. Victoria, why did you never tell us? Because I thought that was what family did, I replied. I thought we helped each other without expecting credit or recognition. I thought love was measured in actions, not acknowledgments. The room felt like it was spinning. Everything Dad had said about Sophia's responsibility, her independence, her superior life choices, suddenly looked different through this new lens. The golden child he had been celebrating had been financially supported by the daughter he had just finished criticizing for her lack of fiscal responsibility. There is more, I continued, feeling reckless and liberated in equal measure. When your transmission died 2 years ago, Mom, I paid for that repair. $4,000. When the furnace broke that winter and you could not afford to fix it right away, I covered that too. Another $3,000. I have been sending you money almost every month for the past 3 years, and you have been telling Sophia it comes from Dad's disability payments, so she would not worry about you. Mom started crying. Victoria, sweetheart, we never asked you to. I know you did not ask. I offered because I love you. Because when I see people I care about struggling, I help. But apparently that makes me irresponsible and selfish. Dad finally found his voice. Victoria, I had no idea you had been. Of course you had no idea, I interrupted. Because you never asked. You never wondered how I was managing my finances or what sacrifices I was making. You just assumed I was failing because my success did not look like what you thought it should look like. I stood up from the table, my legs shaking but my resolve firm. You want to know why I do not own a house, Dad. Because I have been making sure you did not lose yours. You want to know why I drive a 10-year-old car. Because I have been making sure Sophia could focus on her career instead of worrying about rent. You want to know why I do not have an investment portfolio? Because every extra dollar I had went to supporting this family. Victoria, please sit down, Mom pleaded. Let us talk about this. No, Mom. I am done talking. I am done being the invisible daughter who holds everything together while watching the golden child get credit for accomplishments I subsidized. I am done being called selfish by a man who just spent 20 minutes praising his daughter for achievements that were only possible because of my selflessness. I picked up my purse and headed toward the front door. Behind me, I could hear Sophia crying and asking why I'd never told her, could hear Mom trying to explain to Dad how the monthly checks had really worked, could hear chairs scraping against the floor as people stood up. Victoria! Dad called after me. Wait, we need to discuss this. I turned back one last time. Dad, you said Sophia is better than me in every way. You said she is everything I should have been. And you know what? You are absolutely right. She is better than me. She is better because she got to chase her dreams while I was busy funding them. She is better because she got to be the golden child while I was busy being the safety net. She is better because she never had to choose between her own future and her family's present. But I am done being worse. I am done being invisible. And I am done being unappreciated. Walking to my car that night, I felt something I had not experienced in years, complete emotional clarity. For the first time in my adult life, I was not worried about how my actions would affect everyone else. I was not calculating how much money I could spare this month, or wondering whether my parents needed anything, or thinking about how to make everyone else more comfortable. I was just Victoria, 28 years old, finally putting myself first. The drive home was surreal. I kept expecting to feel guilty, kept waiting for the familiar anxiety about family harmony to kick in, but instead I felt oddly peaceful. It was like I had been holding my breath for years and could finally exhale. My phone started ringing before I even got home. First Sophia, then Mom, Then Sophia? Again. I let them all go to voicemail. I needed time to process what had just happened to figure out who I was going to be now that I was no longer the family's financial backup plan. The next morning, I listened to the voicemails. Sophia was crying through most of hers, apologizing over and over for not knowing, for accepting help she did not realize was coming from me, for not standing up to Dad when he was criticizing me. Mom sounded exhausted, explaining that she and Dad had been up most of the night talking, that Dad was devastated to learn how wrong he had been about my contributions to the family. But there was no voicemail from Dad. 3 days later, Sophia showed up at my apartment. She looked terrible, like she had not slept since our family dinner. "I gave Dad a check," she said without preamble, "for $12,000. I told him I could not keep money that was really yours." "Sophia, you do not have to do that." "Yes, I do," she insisted. "I also told him I could not accept any more financial help from him, knowing that it might actually be coming from you." "Victoria, I am so sorry. I had no idea our parents were struggling. I had no idea you were sacrificing so much." We talked for 3 hours that day. Really talked maybe for the first time as adults. Sophia told me how guilty she had felt accepting help during her job search, how she had offered to get a temporary job to support herself, but Dad had insisted she focus on her career. She told me how uncomfortable she had been with his constant comparisons between us, but how she had not known how to address it without seeming ungrateful. "I never wanted to be the golden child," she said. "I just wanted to make everyone proud, but not at your expense. Never at your expense." We cried together, we laughed together, and for the first time in our adult lives, we started building a relationship based on honesty instead of the roles our parents had assigned us. 2 weeks later, Dad finally called. "Victoria, can we have lunch? I owe you an apology, and I would prefer to do it face to face." We met at a quiet cafe downtown, and I was shocked by how much older he looked. The past 2 weeks seemed to have aged him years. "I was wrong," he said simply. "About everything. About your choices, about your priorities, about your contributions to this family. Patricia has been explaining to me how much you have been helping us, and I feel like an idiot. Dad, you were not supposed to know. I did not help because I wanted credit." "But you should have gotten credit," he replied. "You should have been celebrated for your generosity instead of criticized for imaginary failures. I was so focused on what I thought success should look like that I completely missed the incredible person you had become." He paused, staring into his coffee cup. "I think I was projecting my own regrets onto you. I never got the education I wanted, never built the kind of career I dreamed about. When I saw Sophia following a traditional path to success, it felt like vindication. But that was not fair to either of you." "I forgive you, Dad," I said, and I meant it. "But things are going to be different from now on. I am not going to be the family's emergency fund anymore. I am going to start investing in my own future." "Good," he said firmly. "That is exactly what you should do." Over the next few months, our family slowly rebuilt itself on a foundation of honesty and mutual respect, instead of unspoken expectations and hidden resentments. I stopped sending monthly checks home and started putting that money into retirement accounts and savings. I applied for the promotion I had been putting off and got it along with a significant salary increase. Sophia and I developed a genuine friendship for the first time in our lives. She included me in her professional networking events, introducing me to lawyers who needed marketing services. I helped her understand the creative industry she had always been curious about. We started taking weekend trips together, just the two of us, building memories that belonged to us rather than to our family dynamics. Dad made a genuine effort to understand my career and my choices. He asked thoughtful questions about my work, celebrated my promotion with the same enthusiasm he had shown for Sophia's achievements, and stopped making comments about my life choices. Mom relaxed into a version of herself I had not seen in years, no longer constantly worried about keeping peace between strong personalities. The transformation was not instant, and it was not always smooth. Old habits die hard, and there were moments when we all slipped back into familiar patterns. But the foundation had shifted, and we were all committed to building something healthier. 6 months after that terrible dinner, I was promoted to senior marketing specialist with a salary that finally reflected my years of experience and dedication. Dad was the first person to call and congratulate me. "I am proud of you, Victoria," he said. "I should have been saying that for years." Looking back now, I realize that night was the best thing that could have happened to me. Not because it felt good, it was devastating, but because it forced me to stop waiting for validation from people who had already decided I was not worth seeing. I learned that love without recognition is not love at all. It is servitude. And the moment you start honoring your own worth, the people who truly matter will see it too, the ones who do not. Well, that tells you everything you need to know about where you stand in their lives. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give yourself is the permission to walk away from people who make you feel invisible, even if those people share your DNA. Because at the end of the day, the relationship you have with yourself sets the standard for every other relationship in your life. And I finally learned mine was worth fighting for. I want to hear from you in the comments. Have you ever felt invisible in your own family? Have you ever sacrificed your own dreams to support someone else's success? How did you find the courage to finally put yourself first? Please share your stories below, because they matter and so do you. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like and subscribe for more real-life stories about finding your worth and fighting for your place in the world. Share this video with anyone who needs to hear that they are enough exactly as they are. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that your voice matters. Your sacrifices should be acknowledged, and your dreams are worth pursuing. Until next time, keep fighting for the recognition you deserve.